So today on Books Unltd, I have Nikki Dudley, who has joined me for a chat about her book. And I got various questions because you are one very busy lady. You seem to have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. So I intend to delve deep into that and find out a bit more about you. So if you would just like to give yourself a quick 5 minutes, introduce yourself, Nikki, and tell us all about you.
Wow, 5 minutes.
Well, let's not do 5 minutes.
I'm kidding. So I am an author. I have 2 books out, which are both thrillers. I'm also a published poet, so I've got 2 pamphlets and 1 collection, and another one coming out this month as well. So that's quite exciting. I run Street Cake magazine and the Street Cake Prize, which are both sort of focused on experimental writing. And I also run Mum Write, which is a writing program for mums.
I mean, your world just revolves around words then, doesn't it? That's have you always been the case? What's your background?
No, it hasn't always been the case. Street Cake's been going for quite a long time though.
It's an interesting name. Tell me where that comes from.
Well, you can kind of blame we were at a poetry reading, and it was actually my partner who kind of thought up the initial name. We were sort of joking around saying, should we start this magazine, me and my friend Trini, and we were like, oh, I don't know. And then we said, we need a really good name, that people that are going to remember it, you know. And my partner jokingly said, something like Street Lights and Pancakes. And I said, well, that's a bit long. And I said, it needs to be something kind of odd together. So something like, you know, Street Cake. And we were like, oh, Street Cake, that's a weird name. You would probably remember that. It's a bit like Tender Buttons, Gertrude Stein's book. So we kind of joked around, and then we sort of started putting in our emails like, Street Cake, should we do it? Should we do it? And it just kind of stuck. So it's quite good, really.
yeah, no, it works. It's unique, definitely. And it's a talking point as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people do remember it, I think. They go, oh, Street Cake?
And so what is Street Cake? Obviously it's a magazine.
Yeah, it's an online magazine. We've been running it for nearly 13 years now, so quite a long time. It's a place for kind of more non-traditional writing, because when we were trying to find places to send our writing, we didn't find that many places at the time.
Yeah.
So that's when we set up Street Cake. So it's kind of lots of different types of writing, you know, slightly more experimental, more visual. We're open to lots of stuff, basically, but you won't find much rhyming kind of writing in our magazine. That's kind of the point.
Okay, I'm intrigued now. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. So what kind of a writer would you say you are? I know you've got thrillers, you've got two thrillers out, but it seems to me that you have this wonderful ability that I completely lack, in that you can seemingly flow effortlessly through genres.
It's quite funny because people say that to me quite a lot, but it's kind of always been how I am, so I find it kind of strange. I mean, I think first and foremost I was a poet, I guess. That was like my major passion and love, and still is, you know. So I think when I write novels, I try that there's kind of more poetry in it than some, maybe. So yeah, it's still in there, but I also really enjoy thrillers and mysteries, because I just find it's just a fascinating genre, basically. So it's kind of a mix of the two, in a sense.
Have you ever written any kind of screenplays or anything like that? Is that something you would attempt or be interested in doing?
I haven't tried that, but I've had a couple of people say they thought the dialogue was quite strong in the book. So maybe I should try it. Who knows?
Yeah. That was one of the reasons that I said it. I've read Volta, and one of the things that jumped out of me was this could be written for TV. And I think it was the strength that's in the dialogue that carries the story forward, which obviously that's one of the main aims of dialogue anyway. But that was the thing that was going through my head all the time. I wonder if this has been written as a screenplay.
I mean, I do really enjoy writing dialogue, actually. Strangely, I don't know why.
It's not one of my fortes. So
it's kind of funny, but a lot of people have said that, so I've told them, they need to tell, BBC, Netflix, that they need to make a series of it. So that's up to everyone else. Anyone's fine. You can do it.
One of the other things as well that struck me when I was reading the book was the plot itself is, I want to say straightforward, but it's actually quite complex. Once you understand the character motivation, you kind of think, oh, the pennies drop. You kind of like, yeah, get that motivation, get that. But just reading the synopsis alone, it looks quite complex. Now, if I was to sit down with your mindset and write your book based on that synopsis, I would be like, I would not even know where to start. I would be like, there are not enough post-it notes in the world for me to even start planning this. So you obviously have a great knack for planning. Please tell me that you are a planner and not a pantser, because if you're a pantser, then I've got a problem. Oh, no way.
Sorry, Kat.
Oh, no. How can you hold all that in your head at one time? You must have spreadsheets. Tell me you've got spreadsheets.
No, I have things I definitely want to happen.
Right.
And I probably will work on those big scenes in particular, and then try and sort of not fill in, but put in the bits in between those. But yeah, I'm not a very good planner.
Well, wow.
Sorry.
I get confused if I've got maybe one or two storylines that intercede each other. I mean, you must have 3 or 4 or 5. It's wow. Okay.
I feel like other crime books though have a lot more characters actually. So I think I would find that a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Because
there's, in Volta there are different storylines, but I feel like there's not that many characters in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas other crime books, sometimes I'm like, wow, there's so many characters. I'm not sure I could keep track of all of them. So yeah, I guess there's another thing for different writers. They feel different ways, I guess.
So what would be your writing? Do you have a routine then? Do you kind of get to your desk on a morning and that's it? You bang out 5,000 words or whatever? Or how does your writing day look?
Well, again, I wish I could say that there was a routine, but I have 2 young children, so that routine has kind of gone out the window. I used to really like writing in the evening, especially, and sometimes quite late, and I'll get quite obsessive about it. I'll have to sit down and just keep going and going and going. But obviously that's a lot harder these days. So it's a lot more kind of in between. But I do sometimes still get quite obsessed and just say to my partner, no, I'm sorry, I can't hang out with you. I've got too much writing to do. So, and I'll get in, there'll be a point where there's no turning back almost, and I have to just keep going and going. I can't stop thinking about it. I have to, I'll, instead of doing work, I'll probably be on my novel writing stuff. So it's a bit naughty, but
Yeah. Well, these things have got to be done. So what are you working on anything at the minute? I know you've got some poetry coming out, did you say?
Yeah, that's coming out this month, so in a couple of weeks, I guess, which is quite exciting. I am trying to work on a new novel, but so I sort of classed it as a thriller, but there's some elements which are sort of well, I mean, I sent it to someone and they said it's kind of a bit more like fantasy, but I kind of saw it a bit more like The Handmaid's Tale in a sense. It's set in a world which is quite similar to ours, but there are some aspects which are invented. So I didn't really see it as fantasy. It's still a thriller for me, in a sense. So it's a bit trickier, this one. We'll have to see how it goes.
And any publication date in mind, or?
No, I mean, I don't have an agent, and if I want to get anything published, I'll have to send it directly to a publisher or do something like that. So I'm not sure what the next step will be in terms of my novel career, I suppose.
How did you find the self-publishing process?
Well, I didn't self-publish this one. It won the Virginia Prize for Fiction last year, and so that was with Aurora Metro. So they've published this one. And my first novel was published by someone else. I did self-publish a novel in the past, but it's a tough process. But maybe one day I'll do it again. We'll see.
So the Volta won the Virginia Prize in 2020. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was the criteria for that? Was it?
It was just meant to be female writers.
Oh,
so
right. Okay.
Just a prize for female writers. And shockingly, they chose Volta. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. It was good because I think I was getting a bit downbeat about novel writing before that. So it was good that they said yes. And then actually the editing process was actually quite helpful for me. And I think it made the novel a lot better. So yeah, that's good. And I did a lot of cool research for it, which was quite fun.
Yeah.
So.
And just talking about the editing process, is that something that you enjoy, or? And
I mean, I don't know. I guess some writers do really enjoy it. Do you? Or
no, I find it a pain in the ass. I've got an editor. A very good editor.
Okay, that was good. I mean, you do need someone else to look at it, don't you?
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you end up just not really seeing it anymore. So. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I like some of it. It's quite exciting in some ways, but in other ways it's such a hard process, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. I think I had a really bad experience when this is years ago, when I first sent I got a publishing deal, and I sent the first draft of a book to the editor, and it came back and it just had loads of red pen all over it, and I just put it in a drawer and forgot about it and walked away from a contract and thought, I'm never writing another word again. And it took me another 10 years before I picked up the courage to do it. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship. And I understand it needs to be done. Not necessary. But the editor that I work with now, Rebecca, I kind of explained this to her. I've got this deep-rooted problem, this deep-rooted past with editing, and she was so lovely about it that now I see it as kind of it's a necessity. I know my book will be better for it, but I tend to write a draft and then go back and edit rather than edit as I work.
Yes, I think that's sensible.
Yeah, and then I hear other writers saying, oh, no, you should edit as you go along. And I think, but if that was the case, it'd take me 10 years to write one book. I can't do that. Yeah. And actually, I did in last year, I wrote 3 books. I published 2, but I wrote 3. And the third one I sent to Rebecca to have a look at. And she just very politely came back and said, this is crap. But in a very, very polite way. And I kind of reread it and I was really embarrassed. I thought, why on earth did you submit that? It is awful. And I thought, well, this is why you need editing in your life. This is why you need it. You just self-published that would have just crashed and burned. So
it's nice. Sounds like you've got a nice relationship there. So that's good.
Yeah. It's I was very honest with her and said, you have to be nice to me. Because I cry easily.
Yeah, I mean, I do editing for some people too, and I always try to remember what it feels like to be on the other side. And so I try to go with, look, this is what I really liked about it, but there are some things which need some work, like this and this. So yeah. I always try and approach it with some positives and then put some kind of not negatives but areas for improvement, I think. So
in the corporate world we used to call that shit sandwich.
yeah it is. But I prefer for it to be that way. So
yeah. Rough with the smooth. Okay, so we've mentioned about what I've see to be kind of a fluidity between genres, and we know that you've written thrillers. Let's talk a little bit about your poetry. Tell me about that, because I haven't read any of your poems. I am sorry.
Don't be silly.
Because poetry seems to be your first love. Is that right?
Yeah, I think when I discovered poetry, I was like, wow, this is the best thing in the universe. And I've always just loved it. It's just And the thing I like about it is that obviously with novels you have to there's a certain form generally that you have to use, and you know, you have to remember all the punctuation and stuff like that. Of course there are people that break the rules, like Jose Saramago or someone like that, but with poetry I just feel like you can play with the language a lot more, and sort of have some fun with how it looks, and I just, it's quite freeing in that sense. So yeah, I just love poetry. And I just had a pamphlet out about my nan and dementia called I Better Let You Go. And that's a really nice one, probably one of the most personal things I've published actually. So that was a bit scary, but good. The next one's a bit strange as well, though. It's coming out obviously this month with the same publisher actually, because they're really lovely, called Berbua. And I've probably said that wrong because she's got amazing Irish pronunciation, and she said it in such a great way. And it's called Fanny Be Mine, and it's about John Keats and Fanny Brawne, because I always loved John Keats when I was growing up, because I live right next to the Heath, and obviously he used to hang out around there a lot. So when I read his poetry, I was like, wow, this is amazing. He used to walk around right there. So, you know, it was quite inspiring at that time. But then when I read some of his letters later on, I thought, I wonder what it would have been like if these guys had met today, you know. So it's kind of just a bit of a fun poetry collection all about if John Keats and Fanny Brawne had met in the present day. So I had a lot of fun writing that one. So
oh wow. And so where can we get that? Where will that be available?
Well, it'll be on Bearbua's site, and they sell it through Lulu. So yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. And will there be links on your website or?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I try and keep my website up to date.
So I will include all the links and everything at the end anyway, so I'll make sure there's a link back to your website. Right, okay, so I've got my list of questions that I'm going to ask you. Now these are quick fire.
All right.
So the last time I said that, I think I got through like 2 questions because we took so long with the answering. So
I'll try.
Okay, here we go. So do you sometimes base your characters on people you know? Oh, now this is interesting. Oh.
Well, I would have said no, but then this is going to be longer than you want. But I was recently thinking about Volta, and obviously the character of Bryony, who obviously has some issues, shall we say, and sort of part of her issues are not really being able to understand other people's emotions all of the time, perhaps, is one of the side things. And I realized that growing up, I grew up with someone who was kind of, I guess you'd call it neurodiverse now.
Right.
And they had a lot of problems with kind of empathizing with other people. And I sort of thought about it, and I thought, wow, that is something that obviously I wanted in my book, which I haven't really linked to my own life, but I definitely think it is sort of related to that. So I would say yes in some ways, but mostly no, because I write thrillers and
you don't hang out with serial killers and murderers and...
Not often, no. Well, not that I know of. Who knows?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, they walk among us. What genre do you not like at all?
I mean, I'm not crazy about books set in space.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I just find all of the kind of technical information a bit dull for me, but I can understand why lots of people like them, but I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I believe we never went to the moon, so that's a whole other podcast in itself. Do you take a notebook everywhere with you in order to write down ideas that pop up, or your phone or whatever?
Usually it'd have to be my phone now, especially with the craziness of being a mum. But yeah, I do often sort of email myself some notes or write it on my phone and yeah, go back to it later. Sometimes I try and write part of a chapter if I'm really desperate to write it down. So yeah, definitely.
There was I got into a Twitter conversation with somebody the other week, and it was about how you can dream, you know, you have a dream and you wake up, I must write that down, that'll make a brilliant opening of a book. But when you kind of wake up fully the next morning, you realize you've only written 3 words. What was this amazing idea would probably only fill about half a page.
Yeah, it is quite funny when that happens. It definitely happens though. I always get ideas when I'm trying to fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, I once had this amazing idea about this young woman who worked for the French Resistance, and there was this whole scene set on a train going through the French countryside, and it was, you know, in the middle of the war, and it was absolutely stunning. And when I sat down to write it, it was like 3 lines. I was like, I don't know anything about the French Resistance. I don't know anything about the war. I don't really know where to go. It was like 3 lines.
Well, there could have been a good 3 lines.
It could, yeah, well, yeah. And of course, then there's always the times when you're in the shower or you're in the bath, and of course you've nothing to write with, and an amazing one-liner will come to you.
Yeah. It's a writer's life, the woe.
If you were stranded on a desert island and only had 1 book to read, which would it be and why?
I assume you want a novel here, do you?
Well, yeah. Or a book of poetry.
This is sometimes a controversial choice for people. I don't really understand why, but I actually really love Catch-22.
Yeah.
And I've read it probably about at least 5 or 6 times already, but I'd probably read it again because I'm sure there'd still be stuff that I would discover reading it again, much more than a lot of other books, I think. So I'd probably take that.
Yeah, I've read it. My dad was a big fan of kind of Catch-22 and all that genre, and he also got me into Papillon when I must have been about, I don't know, 14, 15. And I remember reading it, not really understanding it. And then I read it again when I was in my early 20s, and same in my early 30s, same in my early 30s. And I'm just turned 50 this year. And I thought, well, I've got to do it, and it's tradition. And it actually meant more to me this time round than it has the previous.
Oh, wow.
If I read it again, I would probably, and I made my husband pull the film and everything. Yeah, I became a bit obsessed with it. But I think I would take that.
There you go.
I've had that, yeah.
Sometimes you know, it is a book that you've read quite a few times and you still get something new from it. I think that's quite impressive. So, you know, but some people really hate it. I'm not really sure why, but yeah.
Don't know. Okay, so last one. If you had a chance to co-write a book with anybody, who would it be with?
I was thinking about this one. I mean, I guess there's 2 people I might choose actually. If it was going to be a novel, I'd either choose Yoko Ogawa, who kind of writes, they're kind of like mysteries, I guess, more than thrillers.
Okay.
But they're kind of, like she had one recently where kind of objects disappear on this island. It was really weird. And so basically it was kind of like there was like a police force, and they would decide suddenly that people weren't allowed cups. And so they would remove all of the cups from the island, and then everyone would suddenly, you know, eventually forget about cups. And so it was really weird. And like it was all these different objects that kept kind of disappearing, and the main character sort of couldn't remember things that had been there a few chapters before. So anyway, she's got some really interesting ideas, and I like her characters and stuff. Or I could go really out there, and there's an American writer who's also Chinese called Charles Yu, and I really love his books as well. They're really funny, so it depends which way I'd want to go, really. A mysterious comedy, maybe.
Yeah. You never know, they may listen to the podcast and reach out.
I did email Charles Yu at one point. For the Street Cake Prize, which I run, and said, would you like to be a judge? And he very politely declined, but he was very nice about it. And it was probably someone who represented him rather than him, but still.
You don't know that. Right, well, where can we find out more about you then? What's your website?
It's just nikkidudleywriter.com, nice and simple.
And you're on Facebook as well?
Yeah, Facebook. But I'm probably most active on Twitter, I would say, which is at Nikki Dudley 20. So yeah, you'll find me sharing random things on there.
Okay, no problem. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Nikki. I do appreciate it. I'll include all the links to your website and where people can get your book in the show notes, and we will definitely have you on again if that's okay.
Yeah, it's been great chatting to you, Kat. Thank you.
No problem. Well, you take care and have a great rest of the day.
You too.